Hi there, thanks for checking out this presentation on where money and cyber resilience could fit together well in your classroom. In the first instance, I always feel it's worth reiterating the teaching quality and not how it's delivered. So whether it's delivered online and as learners and teachers are back in their classrooms, there's perhaps less online learning than there has been in the past year. But regardless of whether you have your learners in front of you or the learning's been done online, this may be done as learning at home. As a bit of project work, so however you choose to deliver that, the focus should be on the quality of that teaching, that it's engaging and that we're assessing effectively. On the point of assessment, I think particularly with cyber resilience and internet safety, there can sometimes be a tendency to teach it as one thing or to teach general cyber resilience and internet safety type activities. We might do a bit of passwords, a bit of web browsing, but I really think there's an opportunity here to be more focused and to look at particular areas of cyber resilience or internet safety. And if we really focus in on those, that makes it a lot clearer about what we're assessing, and that way we can help to ensure that our learners get the best feedback, but also to take those next steps in the learning so that they become more confident with cyber resilience and internet safety. So just a couple of wee points there on the learning, teaching and assessment. For any further information, if you're ever looking for anything about cyber resilience and internet safety, a great starting point is our digilearn.scot site, and you can see some of the tiles there that are available on our cyber resilience and internet safety page on the site. So lots of ideas for lessons on the site there, and also for clarity as a move forward, you'll see the cyber resilience and internet safety shortened to CRIS across that page, and you'll find that on the page, and I'll perhaps be referring to cyber resilience and internet safety as CRIS as I go on through these slides, so just to make you aware of that. In your role as an educator, we've put together these digital teacher diagrams to help understand what's required from the GTC, the experiences and outcomes of the digital learning teaching strategy for Scotland, and we've tried to distill it into these statements, and you can see there's two of them there that make direct reference to the benefits of technology, but also the responsibility and the safety side of technology. So there's lots of opportunities for you to develop this and build your experiences and also those of your learners. The digital learner diagram runs in parallel, so for you to be able to deliver that learning and teaching to your learners, you've obviously got to have those skills and knowledge yourself, so that you're able to apply that into the learning and teaching for your learners. So and just a wee reminder here, I've taken the first three levels there, obviously it carries on up to fourth level, but those are these and those for cyber resilience and internet safety, just to again save you any time having to dig through the experiences, outcomes pages to find them. There they are for quick reference. So again, as you're thinking about how to plan this cyber resilience and internet safety into your maths learning, it's probably where I see it fitting most easily when you're teaching money. So I know if you go with the maths E&O for money, you're probably looking at coins and calculating change and totals and things. I think if I were planning this in my classroom, I would certainly think about where the cyber resilience aspect of money comes into play, and I think that's probably for me to fit together so well, and that's how I would certainly be planning that part of my curriculum. So, as I said, for me this comes up when we talk about money and maths, and as we talk about money and maths, I've got to ask the question of, how often are we using coins? How often are our children and young people using coins? And you can see there on the screen that I've got on one side I've got some of our coins, and on the other I've got some Roman artefacts there, and I do wonder if that's perhaps how our children and young people, certainly our youngest learners, are starting to see coins, these ancient artifacts that we sometimes use. And I would ask you in your life to take a moment to consider, when was the last time you spent cash, and when was the last time, if you have children and young people around you, that you saw them handling cash? Again, think about when you go into any shop, what are the chances that someone's going to pay with an alternative method, either their watch, their phone, or just even their bank card, but to go contactless. So again, I know that the maths knows make explicit reference to coins and count change and checking totals and things, and I think they're still worth teaching, but I also think there are other elements we really want to consider. So on the screen here you can see some data from some marketing research, and it shows you there how much we spend online in the UK, and that scale is in billions of pounds. So in 2019, the last time that was measured, it was almost £200 billion spent online. It's a massive amount of money, and I would ask you that to have a moment to think about how much you spend online compared to how much you spend in shops. And certainly after the pandemic year that we've had, and however much longer that's going to continue, that's certainly having a further impact on our online spending habits. I've added a link to a Jamboard there, and whether you're doing this with us live as part of the workshop or you're watching this up later, you can have a scan of that Jamboard and add your own thoughts to it, or check in and see what others in the live workshops have added and see how other people's online spending habits compares to yours. Yeah, I think this is really important as you consider how you are going to teach this with your learners, that it's really worth taking stock of what you do, how you spend your money, what your behaviours are, to establish your norms, because again, your norms as an adult are probably going to be different from those of children and young people. But again, it's always worth remembering that just because that's what you do doesn't mean that that's what others do. And I think especially when we consider what children and young people do, sometimes their habits will seem very odd to us. It might seem a strange way to spend your time or your money, but again, just to try and keep that in mind, that there is a different generation who will have different habits. So again, to really make sure that we do this sort of activity with our learners, to ask them to find out what they do and how much they fit these norms that we'll see in the next slide. So again, just a wee bit more information before we look at children and young people spending. So there's adult online spending, or online spending as a whole, sorry. And you can see the UK, actually we far outstrip just about everyone in the world for online spending. We're a very mature e-commerce market, and you can see some of those further figures at the bottom of the page there about the reach of online shopping. Just about everyone who goes online shops online, and 14 minutes a day might not seem like an awful lot, but that's up 40% from 2018 to 2019, so that's probably again increased even further, and it is only an average. So if you've got some people obviously only shopping a small amount of time, that means others must be spending hours a day online shopping, and that is over each day. So you might just do your shopping on a Saturday, but you might spend an hour or two doing that. So it's just a massive amount of time that we spend shopping online, and really the mobile device part will come back up later on in these slides, and it's a very similar figure, but 81% of shopping is done on mobile devices. So again, when we think about the amount of time that we shop and how we shop, the device, the platform that we use to shop, it's worth again considering that for us. And again, that's something we've got to consider for our learners. So I'm thinking here of the classic textbook page where George is at the zoo on a school trip, and he goes to the gift shop, and you know, he wants to buy a pencil, a ruler, a rubber, and he's only got £2. Can he buy all three of these? And the learner's got to do an addition calculation and then work out if that is more or less than the amount of money they've taken. For most of us, we're going to grow up in a world where we don't do that. We'll probably buy the things that we're shopping online. So maybe after we've been to the zoo, we might go home and then buy those to be delivered. And again, even if we are still going, we'll see that in children's habits, there is still a wee bit more of going to a shop, but that's probably to do with their age. And again, perhaps the example there of the zoo, they're probably still going to spend that in a gift shop, but it'll probably be on a card or their phone. And that again has come away from the counting coins aspect. So some things are the same and much of it is different, so worth bearing that in mind about our examples of where and what we spend. So if children and young people are using mobiles to shop, then I think our learning should reflect that they are using mobiles to shop, and that should be somehow reflected in the classroom. So when we have a look at children and young people's online and digital spending, we see it's about 30%, just over 30% is done online, and that's higher than it is for adults. So for members, about 20%. But again, you probably spend money on housing and transport costs that come straight out of your bank. It's not spent on shopping as such, and that may account for why adults spend less of their money online than children and young people. The offline spending, again, it still looks, it's over 50% there, but again, that's probably, I would imagine, more to do with age and the access. I don't imagine 5 and 6-year-olds are spending as much of their money online as, say, 15 and 16-year-olds. And again, it's their access and their freedoms to as and when they spend money. So what you can see from the chart on the other side is the amount of money spent by children and young people on average. So going from just about £7.40, I think it is, on average for 7-year-olds, up to £25 for 15-year-olds. So the amount of money spent per week might also impact or affect the amount of money that they spend on or offline. So if you get £7 to spend, that's probably, I think we'll see in the next slide about their habits, spend on things like crisps and sweets. So again, you're less likely to buy online with those. And as children get older, by 15, they're spending more money on gaming and on clothes and shoes. So again, that is more likely you can spend that money online. So it's again worth thinking about how much they spend, why they spend it, and where they spend it. You can see there with the children and young people on the left hand side that still about just over 10% of them are still spending cash. But again, if you think back to perhaps when you were younger, that would have been probably about 90 to 100% would have been spending on cash, unless perhaps you were spending used or returned glass bottles as well. So that might have taken up a small percentage of that, however else you got credit to spend at the shop. I think, again, really important to iterate here about spending habits and the amount spent per week. Those are averages from national surveys. I think absolutely this is an area you want to tread carefully with, and really thinking about those learners in your class who will have less access to funds and online spending, and this may not relate to them. It might still be spending cash in person, physically in a shop, because that's what they have access to. So again, not all learners are spending in this way all these amounts of money. £25 a week might seem a lot to some learners, it might seem like very little to others. So again, taking into account the learners and the children and young people in front of you there. So we look at their spending from 2015 to 2019, couldn't find a direct comparison, but you can see it's very similar across. Sweets and chocolate have moved down slightly from 2019 from 2015, but it's, books and magazines, sweets and DVDs and CDs, I guess that has dropped from 2015. DVDs and CDs are probably the ones that have felt the furthest. And you can see on the right hand side there that Roblox is up to 5. It's climbed 5 places, and that'll come under video games. So again, it's not a direct comparison, but you can see the sort of thing that children and young people spend their money on. There's quite a few bits that stay the same. The one on the right's more specifics, talk about Lego and presents, and I guess that could be books, tickets, etc. as well, could be presents for other people. But CDs and DVDs, I imagine, will be well out of the top 10 as we stream more and more of our content. Do boys and girls buy the same things? That's obviously a very broad statement of girls or boys. So not all boys and girls or any other learners that you have in your class. Just because they're a boy doesn't mean they'll spend their money on games, but again, statistically that is where they're spending their money. So you can see it starts off the same with it's buying crisps and sweets, and it's that perhaps a naughty little treat when they get their spending money and they are able to go to the shop and they buy a can of juice that or a fizzy drink that perhaps they're not allowed in the house, and that's where young learners, young people spend their first bits of pocket money. So it's a wee treat for themselves. As they then grow up, and you can see ages 11 to 15, a bit more spending power. So again, rather than being £7, they've now perhaps got £10, £15, and that's the kind of money that they can spend on clothes or fashion or video games. And as they get older, it becomes, it's buying food. So it's probably because they've got a wee bit more freedom. They're away from home. They're out with their friends for the day, might be on the weekend, and they're in town. And rather than having to come back to the house for food, they're staying in town and getting some food with friends. So it becomes social eating, I imagine, probably has the impact. It's probably the socialising that leads to the eating, and where that money's spent. So now this is where I'm going to focus really on the spending of boys in this case. And yes, girls spend their money on games as well, just not in the same proportion as boys do. I think it's around about a quarter of girls' money gets spent compared to boys on games. Girls do tend to play games roughly the same number as boys, if I'm right, but what they tend to play are mobile games, sort of free-to-play games that they can download to mobile devices through app stores, whereas boys are more likely to invest in games on a console, which have got a purchasing fee. So buying the game like Minecraft or FIFA have a cost to getting that software or game on their device, so that incurs a higher cost. That's why there's a higher proportion of that. When I was looking into the research for this, I could find very little, if in some cases no, reports or research or panic about girls spending money on clothes and shoes and fashion. Couldn't find any research about the fact that children, young people spend their youngest pounds on sweets and chocolate and fizzy drinks, or that they spend their older pounds on fast food and takeaway foods with friends. However, when you look at children and young people spending on games, there is loads of research and articles out there online, and I thought it was something that deserved a wee bit of a look, particularly coming from the digital learning and digital skills side of things. So why is there such concern about children and young people spending money on games? So that's the area that I'm going to focus in on here. Again, depending on how you take this, if you're having more of a health and wellbeing focus, you might want to look at that link to, again, money and maths and how they spend it on eating out or buying crisps and sweets, and you might want to build your maths lessons around that. But I'm going to focus, obviously, from a cyber resilience and internet safety point of view, so we're going to have a look at gaming next. So when we look at children and young people spend a massive amount of money on games, it's around about £3 billion a year are spent in the UK on games, which dwarfs video and music, which are about 2 and 1 billion respectively. And I've got those figures on the next slide. But when we're looking at games, what they spend the games on, you can see here on the left hand side with the donut, the different types of games that they buy. So you've got the free to play, so games that are free, but then you have to spend money within them. So that might be games like Candy Crush that are free to download, but you have to pay money to access extra features, and that's 17%. Then pay to play games, so games that you've got to pay a monthly subscription to play. Not getting examples at the top of my head, but let's say the game costs £10 a month to play, but then you have to buy further things within the game. But you can see that's only 3%. It's a tiny amount, so there's not many people spending that double whammy of buying a game and then spending further within it. And then the 34% is premium games. So again, they've bought a game like FIFA, and they then have to spend money on FIFA points, the FUT, the FIFA Ultimate Team points, or a game, the like a Grand Theft Auto, where again they've bought the game and then they have to buy extra features or levels or cash or characters. So that's 34%. And sorry, I should have mentioned with free to play, probably the most famous one at that 17%. Almost, I imagine most of that 17% will be made up of either Roblox for younger learners or Fortnite for slightly older children and young people. So again, Fortnite and Roblox are free to play, but you've got the option to buy things within them. And then at the bottom, the biggest chunk, they're almost 50%, is buying the full game. So you know, to buy a game like FIFA, costs you about between £40 and £60 to buy and own that game, whether it's a disc or a downloadable version straight to their console. So still, most of their game money being spent on or the biggest single one has been spent on a traditional game, or you know, perhaps back when you were younger, you went and bought that game for your Super Nintendo or your Sega Mega Drive, and you bought the game and that was it. So that's that 47% for these children, young people. But you see, over half the money spent is either on free or pay to play or content. So if you imagine buying the old FIFA on your Super Nintendo, and then you've got to buy points to add players to it. That's what they're doing with that. And you can see a further breakdown of that for adults versus children on the right hand side. You'll see in both cases, children, whether it's free to play or paid games, children tend to spend more money on adding content to a game that they own, except for in single player content, where adults spend more money. You see at the bottom left in green, adults spend slightly more in single player content. So that's a game you play by yourself and you might want to add new levels or characters. Adults spend more on that than children, but children, you can see when it comes to cosmetic and free and paid games, children will spend more money to personalise the game or the characters to make it more to their liking. What I think is important to note here, you'll see a lot of panic online about loot boxes, and rightly so. Loot box is the idea that you buy, I can say in the WWE wrestling games, you can buy a pack of cards, a bit like going to the newsagent when you're younger and buying football or some sort of collectible sticker. You don't know which cards you'll get in the pack, but you can buy a pack of cards and you might get a legendary wrestler, a historic wrestler that's got really good attributes in the game, but the chances are you'll probably get things like a bit of hair or glasses or a pair of shoes for your character to wear in the customization mode. So there's the lure of getting a really powerful character, but you might end up with just minor cosmetic enhancements there, but you're paying the money, and the idea being that you have to keep buying these packs of cards until you get the best rewards there. So that's what a loot box is, and rightly so. Again, if you're being charged a few pounds a time to get uncertain rewards or benefits from that, it's akin to gambling, and there's certainly a worry that it encourages or it introduces learners to gambling. But you can see there the number for free games at 6%, and for paid games, children and young people do not seem to be spending very much money on loot boxes, and again, that's in some cases there are problems with that. You hear about children spending hundreds of pounds on these loot boxes with no real benefit to the game, but it's a small number there, so perhaps less of a focus, but something you might well want to, if that comes up when you speak to your children and young people in class about their spending, and there is a bit of a acknowledgement that they spend money on loot boxes, then that is the area you want to perhaps focus your learning and teaching. That's what I'd say here is, I wouldn't be just planning a generic lesson about spending in games. I would be breaking this down, finding out what children and young people spend their money on, and getting them to have those discussions about whether or not they think buying cosmetic features in games is good value for money. Does it represent value? Or again, would they be better spending their money on some of these in-game impacts? So perhaps buying a better character to improve your team in FIFA. That might be a better way of spending money than adding cosmetic things or outfits to Fortnite. But again, it's really so important to acknowledge the cultural capital that this has for children and young people. And you see very often children will tell you that in games like Fortnite, you'll be made fun of online for using the default character skin, the outfit that the character comes with, and you're expected to own the latest one. So you've got to buy the new skins, you've got to buy the new outfit, which might cost just a few pounds, but you're updating that regularly. But there is a cultural capital, there's a value in these cosmetic enhancements to children and young people. And I would ask you again to here, look inward at what you do spend your money on. Do you have a phone case or cover? If you've got an iPad or a tablet, is there a cover or a case on that? Does it have a pattern, or is it just a plain black one that's functional? When you think about your car, do you have the bog standard edition, or have you paid more to get an FR, GT or ST line? Have you bought a car that's got leather seats in it? Has it got a leather steering wheel? Did you decide whether to get black wheels or chrome silver wheels? What about your house? Have you painted your house, painted your fence? Have you put flowers in your garden? Have you bought new shoes recently? So all these things that you spend money on in your life, and someone might well question the value of those. Did you have to buy £100 Adidas trainers, or could you have bought £10 Asda trainers? That's what children and young people are doing here. They're spending their money on cosmetic, they just have to be digitally cosmetic enhancements. So again, try and look inward. And again, the one I like to think about here are, record collectors and people who are buying music that they probably own on CD, but they're now buying it on vinyl because that's the fashion, that's the trend to own things on vinyl. Or a limited edition comes out of your favourite film or record. Or indeed, Marvel do their box sets of all the Marvel Universe films, but each time they bring out a new film, they re-release the box set, and there will be collectors who buy that box set over and over. Might be worth looking at your shelves and seeing how many copies of Star Wars you own. Have you bought the updated or the new digitally revised or deluxe versions each time a director's cut of some film comes out? How many copies of that do you own? Have you got more than one copy of your favourite book? Have you got it paperback and hardback? Have you got a signed copy that you keep away for not reading? So again, we will, as adults, we will buy things that don't necessarily impact or improve our life, but we buy them because we want to, we like the way they look. That's what children and young people do in their games. So not to lecture, but again, just that reminder to look inwards at our habits, and do they mirror? In fact, can we see it from children and young people's point of view, which is so important. There are some issues that come with the spending. As you can see there, I said the revenue at the bottom there in 2019, and that's increased again during the pandemic. But games, almost 4 billion. I said it was about 3 billion. It's almost 4 billion. Video is about 2.5 billion, and music's about 1.5 billion. So if you think about the amount of music and video that perhaps you consume if you don't play games, and games dwarfs them. Games are worth almost as much as video and music in the UK combined. That is how much people play games. So it does indeed, lots of money are spent on games. Part of that might well be that a video or a music to buy and own physically is about £10–15 per disc, or digital downloads, £10–15 for an album or a film, but games are typically 40 to 50, even upwards to £60 per copy. So to own the latest copy of FIFA will be about £50 or £60 when it first comes out. That will reduce as the game goes through its life cycle, but it starts off more expensive than a film or an album might well cost. So that might be part of the reason it costs more. But again, I think it's because so many people play games, and again, I think in my own game collection, there's probably about 50 or 60 games that I have on my PlayStation at the moment. So it's perhaps that you own more, because once you've finished a game, you go and play another game, whereas you might listen to your favourite records over and over again. So, and there's also things to consider about streaming here when we've moved to models like Netflix and Spotify, where we perhaps pay a 1 monthly fee. So I'm paying £10 a month for my music streaming service, pay roughly about £8 a month, £9 a month for Netflix to stream video. Other services are available, but those are one flat monthly fee. There are similar options available through services on PlayStation and Xbox, where you can pay a monthly fee and play any game you like. from that library, but again, it doesn't usually feature the newest, latest games, and they still carry that £50 to £60 premium upfront cost. So when it comes to the problems of spending, you can see there 1 in 10 12 to 15s have reported that they spent too much money online in the last year. So boys, it's a good bit higher than girls. So that's perhaps buying too many skins or characters or FIFA Ultimate Team points or cards. However they're spending it, they're perhaps spending too much money online, and that's about 10% there. And if you look at what those children who said they spent too much money online, 15% of that was spent on gaming. So you see the biggest one is I don't know, can't remember, it's somewhere else. So there's perhaps a wee bit of hiding where the money is spent, and that's what coming at 64% of money is unaccounted for. So I mean, it's perhaps a dubious means of spend there. Again, something you might want to investigate with your children and young people in front of you. But again, out of all the others, you look at video sharing platforms, search engines, instant messaging on social media, it's accounting for about 10% of where they think they spent too much money, but 15% is on gaming. So there is perhaps some issues around online spending related to games, and that's probably in online games as well, or online shopping attached to games such as the PlayStation and Xbox. So again, there are some concerns around spending too much money online. Is it because it's easier and quicker to spend online? That's a point. Again, I would be discussing that with your learners about how they spend and why they think they might be spending more than they wanted to. Then it's again moving on slightly from gaming and thinking what is impacting those spending habits. So we're still in a digital realm here, and if you look at, these are products related to children's favourite YouTubers, and that's games, magazines, clothes, toys, books and DVDs. The image hasn't came up very well as it's scaled, but you can see from age 3 to 12 in purple, and then age 13 to 18 in the sort of greeny yellow. So you can see there massive impact. It's around 15% each time when you total them up, but 15% of children and young people's purchases are related to their favourite YouTuber. So those marketing or influencers are having an impact on children and young people's spending decisions. And you can see particularly games comes in at the highest score there. So certainly what your children's favourite YouTuber is doing is certainly impacting their purchasing decisions. Is that part of the reason they're spending more than they wanted to? And you can see that games, again, as I say, are the highest influenced by YouTubers, and again we see that games have that one of the highest percentages of where children and young people spend their money that they don't want to spend. So again, talking to them, starting to get into the question about who influences them in their decisions to buy and spend, and again, is it scrupulous? Is that person on YouTube doing it altruistically, or again, are they being paid? And I think that the data will tell you that children and young people are aware that those YouTubers are selling products, but they're perhaps not aware how they sell or how they get paid. Might well tell you that Ninja gets paid to play Fortnite on YouTube, but they might not be aware that, you know, one of those examples is that he is it will be in a multi-million-pound, I imagine, deal with Adidas to wear Adidas tracksuit. So he's got his own Ninja Adidas tracksuit that you can buy for around £100. So again, they might not be aware that Adidas are paying him to wear the Adidas tracksuit, but they know that he gets paid money to be on YouTube. So again, it's worth looking at those models about how they earn. And again, a lot of your children, young people, I think it's around half now, want to be an influencer or a YouTuber. So that might well be something relating to developing the young workforce. You want to explore further how they do that, but how they do it safely and, as I say, scrupulously. So who are these influencers? Quick graphic showing you there about this come from an Ofcom report and what they're scoring each influencer in terms of their audience size there. So going from nano influencers, that's your everyday people, and that's probably some of the learners in your school will have between 1 and 10,000 followers or audience, and that might seem unlikely, but again, you talk to children and young people and you find out, you know, that their audience size Perhaps that's why they've always got their phone, or they're always listening for pings and alerts. That's why they've always got the latest trainers or haircuts or whatever it is, because they've got their own audience and their brand that they are growing. As it goes up to 10 to 100,000 are classed as micro-influencers, and again, those might be small advertising opportunities, maybe a few £100 here or there to drink a certain drink or plug a certain game in their wee small YouTube channel of up to 100,000 people. But then you've got those massive ones, the macro influencers, over 100,000, and that's where you've got your footballers, your singers, and they're getting paid millions of pounds probably to promote products online. So again, getting that sense of scale with children and young people, and talking about, again, links to DYW where they might see themselves in the future. And again, to just think about how these people are impacting. Does Cristiano Ronaldo really think that Pepsi or Coke is the greatest drink in the world, or has he been paid to say that? So should we be believing what our influencers are telling us, or do we have to take that with a pinch of salt? And that comes into media literacy and information literacy, which we'll again make reference to further on. When we start to look at those online platforms that we use, we're probably aware that the likes of Facebook and Google, Apple, Microsoft and Amazon gather information on us, they gather our data, but maybe not understanding how that model works. Facebook's free. Yeah, it's one of the biggest grossing companies in the world. Mark Zuckerberg's an enormous, massive personal fortune, that the founder of Facebook. So how does he make money if it's a free platform? And it's this idea that I think a lot of people still think of social media and these platforms as public services available to us. Facebook is there for us to use, as if we are the customer and it is the product. And what you really want to do is flip your thinking to understand that we are the product, and Facebook is gathering our data to sell to advertisers. So we perhaps think that we, the consumer, we are the customer, but in actual fact it is the advertiser on the other side who is the customer, and we are the product, and the platform sits in between. The platform, Facebook and Google, are a way of getting us, the product, our data, to advertisers who pay money to get that information so that they can sell it on to brands. So again, the more you Google Pepsi or Coke, the more Pepsi and Coke will pay Google to get data to make you Google them more, so that you come to their website and you spend more money on them. It's that sort of model. So might seem obvious, it's quite a simple diagram there, but again, it's that thinking that we are not the consumer of Facebook, we are the product as far as Facebook and some of these services are interested in us. And again, it's starting to raise that awareness. There's not really much we can do about it if we want to use these popular services. But again, for me, it's a wee bit like air pollution. We perhaps were naive to the damage of air pollution decades ago, but now we've seen massive shift towards reducing the amount of pollution that we put into the air, because we're aware of the harm that it is doing to us. And I believe with data, although we're not perhaps taking it as seriously as we could, our data that we give away freely could come back to bite us in the future. But I believe that if we raise awareness with children and young people as they grow up, they'll be more data aware, more data literate, and that will help them to either negotiate the cost of their data or to limit its use, whether that's for positive or negative use. So again, just about raising awareness, and I think that will take time for us to see change, but that's something I think we should be hoping for in the future. When it comes to understanding how ads and data and tracking works, it's really interesting to see here on the left-hand side, you've got the percentage of people who could identify that advertising was the main source of funding for search engine, and it's only about half of the population, whether it's young people or adults, are aware that search engines are funded. So Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, whatever you use to search the internet, and in most cases I think Google's close to 100% for obviously the market leader, but Google, the search engine, is free to use because they make money from adverts. The first anything you Google, the first results that will come up that top line are adverts, and most people are not aware of that. So again, children and young people should be learning that that is what is paying for that free service. So Google's free because they're going to sell you ads, and that's where they make their money from. You can see there 45% of people who are not happy with their personal information being collected. But again, if we want to access these services, we usually have to grudgingly accept the terms and conditions and the cookies. Cookies are the most identified form of tracking our online movements, but I think it says something for the, I'm going to say the naivety of most people, where we're not happy about data being collected. But you can see here that 44% of those who didn't want their data collected were unaware that smartphones collected data on them. So although you may have turned off your mobile phone's location tracking, your app might still be collecting that data because that's in the terms and conditions, and you've not turned it off. So although it's turned off on your device, the app might still have that data collection turned on. When you spend money on your banking app, it will be tracking where you spent that money, how much you spent. So again, if you go to Google and you Google your local leisure centre, you often get the opportunity on the right hand side of the screen. It will show you in real time the number of people, either in real time or typically the number of people who will be there at a certain time of the day, and that is done by gathering smartphone data. Your phone, those people who are at that leisure centre, their phone is pinging to say this is where I am just now, and Google has that data, so it can tell you how many people are roughly in a place because of their smartphone. So where we're becoming more aware, that's almost 50% of people don't want to give out their personal information. Half of that 50% were unaware that their phone was collecting data on them. They thought because they said no to cookies on the website, or they put in a fake name when they signed up for an email or whatever it is to protect their identity. There's this misunderstanding about what GDPR covers, and perhaps that we think that our sensitive data is our name and our address, but in actual fact that's not what companies are looking for. So they're quite happy for you to click the GDPR box, because what they want is your metadata, how long you browsed a site, what time you were on the site, what device you used to access the site. So again, we've got lots of work to do in raising that awareness of data literacy and digital footprints. Again, digital footprint isn't just the apps that you use, it's what data those apps gather on you. So when you're using Facebook, whose profile did you click on, how long were you on that profile, what kind of pictures did you upload, are you uploading lots of pictures of you at football? Facebook has software that will scan photographs, and if your photographs have got you at the football, then Facebook will target you with football suggestions and adverts, because it can read your photographs. So again, it's about understanding, developing our own understanding and developing the understanding of our children and young people to be more aware of how that digital footprint is created and used. So lots of bits there to consider about how they spend the money and how the internet gets us to spend more money and what that is used for. So when we talk about cyber resilience and internet safety, the first bit I'm going to talk about here is internet safety and digital footprint. We talk about internet safety, it's those four areas you can see on the left of the screen, and we talk to our children and young people about being safe, smart and kind. That's what internet safety is about. In terms of this online shopping, the only bit that is internet safety and they want to think certainly about being smarter online is considering their digital footprint. So when they leave their digital footprints all over the online shopping, their computer, their web browser is collecting that data. Facebook and WhatsApp and Google, all these companies are all gathering data on you, visit sites that you visit, what you spend your money on. They're building a profile of you and they're selling that to advertisers who will then target you with further adverts. So that's how your browser is. If you're looking at buying a new car, your web browser will suggest, things like Arnold Clark adverts will pop up, and your personalised ads. So that's influencing things that you look at. Advertisers then target you with more of the same, and our children and young people need to understand that is what's happening and that is influencing their buying decisions. They can limit some of that impact by taking better control of their online footprint. But again, it's not just about what apps do you use and that sort of typical digital footprint lesson. It's really getting them to think as they get older, a wee bit wiser, thinking about that impact, and is that the reason that they bought their new Nike trainers instead of Adidas trainers? If they go and look at the adverts, you know, there are a lot more adverts about Adidas or Nike or other favourite YouTubers wearing a particular brand of clothing, and starting to understand why they spend the way that they do. So a wee bit more about what a digital footprint is, and some questions to get you to think about, and think about with your learners. That might be the basis of the learning you want to do with them. Ask these sorts of questions, find out what they know, what they don't know, and that will build the foundation of what you're going to deliver in that learning. Some links on the right hand side and some further links in the notes section of this PowerPoint for you as well. Just a wee bit to get started and having a think about where you can go to for quick and accessible ideas and information to talk about digital footprints. The next part then, we will start to move to cyber resilience, and that's really thinking about the device. And the reason we want to think about that is, if you look at these figures here, and I think that 81% of online shopping earlier in this presentation correlates directly to the amount of shopping online done on mobile, whether it's tablet or smartphone. You can see that 71 of that 81% is smartphones alone. So most of children and young people's money is spent online using a smartphone. So again, we are going to have to tailor our learning to be about using that device. You can see in the centre to the right of the screen, it's broken down by device access for ages. So our youngest learners are more likely to use a tablet, but as they get older, and it probably relates to mobile phone ownership, but children and young people go from browsing the internet on a tablet to a mobile phone. Computer it's a small amount, but it's pretty steady. It increases slightly for older learners, but again, think about how those children and young people are accessing the internet. That'll impact how they spend their money online, and the chances are they might have a tablet that's not internet connected, or doesn't have to be connected all the time, and they can play their games offline as well as online, and therefore there's less chance of them spending money online. But again, we need to understand how they're spending their money, what they're spending it, which platform or devices they're using, so that we can tailor our learning and teaching to what they do. There's no point in talking about how to do shopping online using a laptop if our children and young people don't use a laptop. It's not relevant to them. So again, got to tailor the learning to what our children and young people are telling us. And when we talk about cyber resilience, you can see the three key aspects here about passwords, risks, and rights and responsibilities. And our sort of motto for that is recognise, react, and recover. That's what we need our children and young people to be able to do. Recognise the risks, react to them, and if we do fall into a trap, which will happen to most of us, we'll lose money, we'll be impacted or hurt or offended by things that we see online. It's how we recover from those setbacks. So we're going to go through those three areas very quickly just before finishing off this presentation, but these are coming under cyber resilience, not internet safety. So when we talk about passwords, it's about securing the device and the platform. It doesn't keep the person safe. A password won't keep you safe from bullying. It won't keep you safe from sharing images. Those are internet safety aspects. When we talk about cyber resilience, we're talking about the device and the platform. And again, when it comes to money, cyber resilience is what will keep your money safe, because again, you are not going to be hurt directly. It's not going to be you that's targeted or impacted when your money is targeted online. It's going to be through the platforms and the devices. So you can't spend money online without your device or your platform. So that's why we talk about it under cyber resilience. There again, you can see what children and young people are worried about, what they think the threats to them online are, and you can see again scams and fraud, viruses are some of the biggest, hacking and security is the biggest, and it again dwarfs private information being made public or personal information being stolen. Those aren't the biggest concerns for children and young people, so that there is a concern about hacking and security, and within that, what are the particular bits within there? It's spam emails are the biggest element of that. So there is a concern that spam emails are a problem, and what you'll find again is with older learners are more likely to worry about emails, because at 4 and 5 they either don't have an email address or they don't use email. But as you grow up and you have to have an email address to sign up for Domino's pizza delivery or Just Eat, or buying shoes from your online retailer, JD Sports, Amazon, or you want to sign up for social media, Facebook and WhatsApp, etc., you've got to have an email address for these. So as you get older, you start to use your email address more, and then it becomes more susceptible to spam, which again, quite often, spam and phishing are tied together quite closely. So understanding what they think the risks are, and again, you can start this from a young age with your learners, but what they think risks online might be. What does phishing or smishing or vishing look like? So just thinking about what the different types of scams and spams and viruses might be. They can learn about them so they're able to recognise them, and then you want to teach them how to react to those threats. And if they do suffer a scam online, how do they recover from that? So again, just to recap, within the risks that our devices and our platforms online, you've the threat of scams, the threat of hacking and information being accessed and stolen without your permission, and viruses which will damage your device. So again, about getting learners to research those, make sure that they're aware of what the different viruses or different hacking tricks and scams might be, how they spot and recognise phishing. And it doesn't mean that they'll recognise phishing every time, but at least we're giving them the chance to recognise it and hopefully avoid that scam. One of the easiest things we can do to keep our devices and our personal information more secure online is to use a password. Really simple advice from the National Cyber Security Centre tells us it's 3 random words and then whatever else is required by our platform. So Glow might ask for a capital letter and a special character as well as the 3 random words. So you do your 3 random words and you can add in whatever else is required by that platform. However, we will start to see that we're using more and more passwords. If you're like me, you're starting to lose track of them. And that guidance again from the NCSC tells us that it's okay to write down a list of passwords for different sites to keep them stored somewhere. Probably not on your computer though, but you could write them down on a bit of paper in your house. Because the chance of someone breaking into your house to steal a password to get into your Facebook or email is unlikely. There's probably things that they would steal from your house before stealing a list of passwords. So it's a slightly different threat there. But also, if you are doing it online, most web browsers or devices now will store your passwords securely for you. So what you can do is store those passwords into your browser, which has got its own anti-hacking security there to keep those safe and secure. Or you might want to use a dedicated password manager app where you need a special password for the app, but then the app will generate random passwords for all the different websites you use. So again, as long as that app stays secure and it's not breached, then all of your other platforms and services should be safe within it. So a few different things we can do. You can also look at two-factor authentication. You're thinking about your mobile app for your banking, and it will usually send you a passcode to your mobile device to confirm that it's you when you log in each time. So that's another option that can be turned on with a lot of online platforms, so that I know Google does it as standard. If I try to log into my Google account on another device, it will send me a passcode to my registered phone so that I can only access that with the phone that I signed up to Google securely with. But it's worth asking learners about their habits And to also consider, again, looking inwards at our habits. Do we have class passwords? Do we have a school password for all of the iPads or laptops? It says everybody in primary 6 got primary 6 for the password, or do they have those unique passwords like they do in real life? That's what they should be getting in school. And also worth raising that, are they sharing the passwords at home with adults? And the likes of Glow is for learners, so it should not be getting accessed. Parents at home should not know children and young people's Glow passwords, because that means that any adult could get into Glow, where they would have access to children and young people digitally. So again, about keeping that environment secure, we want to have good cyber hygiene, we like to call it. So a bit like washing your hands when you've been to the bathroom. When you finish using a device, you're signing out and keeping your password safe, as safe and secure as you can. So more information there, places to go. There's links again in the notes. How secure is my password? Is a great place to go and test how strong your password is that you've created. Really good to do that to learners, get them to come up with their own passwords and then test how secure the password is. Also, again, you might want to go down different routes with this. You might link it to your science. You want to look at biometrics. Most mobile devices now will use face and fingerprint recognition to unlock them. How does your phone know it's you? Because you've got your fingerprint, so you might want to look at how fingerprints work, and that might lead you down that path, from maths and cyber resilience all the way down to some biometrics for your science. Again, just tying up those different parts of the curriculum. And again, really fascinating when you think about how computers keep things safe and secure. So when you put a password in, it becomes encrypted. So when you put your password into a website, it's got the wee dots showing you a blank password. It's because it has started to encrypt your password, and that's how it keeps it secure. And again, if you want to look at how encryption works, relates really well to maths and understanding, doing your logic and problem solving. And great links again to Alan Turing, and there's a link to the Barefoot Computing Unplugged, so you don't need the computers to do it, to learn about Alan Turing and how he helped crack the Enigma code. And again, it's all about ciphers, that mathematical thinking, and it relates really well to cyber resilience with maths again. So a couple of different ways to explore cyber security there with children and young people. You can also look again, an example, I've put a link here, a link to a free test resource looking at different ciphers. And again, you can look at using a Pigpen cipher, so you create the encryption here, and then you can write messages that you need a key to crack, and that's again simulating how a password works. There's a link to the Alan Turing Barefoot resource, definitely worth taking a look at. And again, if we improve our learners' knowledge and understanding of how the internet and the World Wide Web works, one of the simplest things we can do is teach them about the hypertext transfer protocol. That's your HTTP in the top on the web browser, up in the address bar. And again, it's as simple, you'll see the adverts on the TV and things as well about HTTPS. Just means that it has been authenticated and checked. So the website that's being hosted at an HTTPS is more secure and less likely to be a scam, because you've got to have someone authenticate that, and somebody's checked that that website is what it says that it is. So it's a really simple, if you're going to buy things, let's say you went to http amazon.us.com, again, learners should be able to recognise that that doesn't look right. It should be HTTPS and then amazon.co.uk, because they're a British consumer. It should be on that british.co.uk web address, and it should have the HTTPS to tell you it's secure. So there's a few things you can tell by the web address can help us avoid scams, but they're not. It's not a total security measure, but it will help. And again, just coming towards the end of the presentation, it's again lots of ideas in here that hopefully they prove useful. Another one that's really worth thinking about is that critical literacy or information literacy, however you want to look at that, and recognising about what we see online and whether it's true or trustworthy. And maths is a fantastic way of checking that. So if someone makes a claim online, one of the best ways we can check that is, again, our understanding of graphs, data, charts, numbers, facts and figures. If we can look at something and say that sounds unlikely, 99% of people thought their teeth were whiter after using this toothpaste. If it sounds too good to be true, it might well be. So again, I think using our maths, our understanding of information and data to interpret the things that we see online and look at something and say that just doesn't seem right. So again, making links to literacy and English through our numeracy and maths and cyber resilience and internet safety there. And to finish off that last wee part about the rights and responsibilities, we can link this really well to the UNCRC about the right to access information online. And again, we think about one of the big advantages of online shopping. We've got things like Trustpilot and FIFO that tell you, based on people's reviews, how trustworthy a website is. You can use HTTPS. And again, trustworthy news and information sources. So, hopefully things like the BBC are more accurate, and we can fact check them more easily than perhaps a newspaper or gossip column. So again, supporting our learners to access information, but accessing it better and to be able to evaluate what they're accessing. When it comes to cyber resilience, the Scottish Government policy will tell you that we need our children and young people to be more cyber resilient and to be able to keep themselves safe and secure. It's ultimately comes down to the user about keeping themselves safe. It's not obviously for children and young people, it is their adults or carers' job to keep them safe and secure online as well. But ultimately, as they grow up, it's not the state or the government or the school or their employer and MD's job to keep them safe and secure online. It is their own responsibility. So that they do have to learn these things to help them stay safe. And again, as they grow older, the cyber resilience internet safety experience and outcome starts to make reference to understanding the law, what the law says about it. So does the law protect you, whether about the things that you say online, the way that you act, or how others act towards you. So if you give someone your credit card details, it's not technically, they've certainly not hacked it. So it's about understanding how to use your details to spend money without your permission would be theft. But if you've given them your details, then it's not hacking. So it's about understanding the legal implications as well of their actions. And just a point I want to raise as we finish off about whose role it is. Certainly not blaming parents or carers, but if we look at adults' concern to children using this as video services such as YouTube. So the worry about them accessing things like YouTube online, adults are really worried. You can see they're far more worried than children are about the risks. However, for me, that clashes slightly with the parental use of safety measures. And although adults are saying that they're worried about what children and young people are doing online, for me that is really worrying about the fact that less than half have rules about video content for children and young people. Now, that might again be slightly skewed by age, so perhaps you don't need rules for your 14 and 15-year-old the same as you do for your 4 and 5-year-old. But again, only about 10% have age-appropriate sites such as YouTube Kids. Most likely those 4 and 5-year-olds are on the full version of YouTube, and it's only 10% are watching videos supervised. So again, for families saying that they have concerns about what their children and young people are experiencing online, it doesn't match up to the actions they're taking. So whether we need to do support, that might be engaging through community learning and development, CLD, with the families in your community to help the families as well as our children and young people to think about how they implement these safety measures, because that for me really stands out, that our children and young people are using these devices, but we're slightly away from money here, but again, about how they use their device, and we're thinking about cyber resilience and internet safety here. Our children and young people are lacking some support here, I think. So how are we going to support our community and our families to help alongside the learning and teaching that we do in the classroom? How are we going to help our children and young people be safer? So lots of resources to share. There's lots of links in the notes section of this presentation, but I wanted to highlight this one in particular, Your Money Matters, from Martin Lewis, the money saving expert, is one of the main contributors to it, and it's available to download for free, but 6 chapters in the book, lots of different ways you can incorporate money and maths across the curriculum. But for me, the one to focus on is chapter 6, all about security and fraud. Lots of ideas in there ready to go. So if you think, how do I start to introduce this to my learners, think about the themes I've covered today, that textbook's a fantastic starting point, but there's lots of others too. In the notes section, you'll find them on our CRIS page on Did You Learn Scot too. Again, key ones to point out: National Cyber Security Centre, Get Safe Online, which is the UK government's online safety portal. Again, especially for pointing out to families and young people as they get older and they're more independence for things like online shopping. And again, you've got Young Scot have got advice as well for staying safe online and spending. A wee bit aside from the money aspect, but again, we're thinking about our children and young people engaged with cyber resilience, cyber security. There's lots of programmes, challenges and competitions that they get involved in, so worth checking those out from the. And just to round off, a reminder of our safer internet safety message is safe, smart and kind. That's the 3 things we want our children and young people to do, to be online. Anytime they go to do an action online, they've got to send a message, do a thing, post a video, whatever it is, they should be asking themselves, is this safe, is it smart, is it kind? And that's a great step towards a better internet and web for everyone. And in terms of cyber resilience, we want to talk about recognising threats, reacting to them, and then recovering or reporting them. So again, if we do fall foul of any online harms to our device or platforms, how we recover, how we bounce back from that. If you are doing learning on cyber resilience and internet safety, and you haven't already got a Digital Skills Award, definitely worth signing up for that. We're happy to support you with your application if we can, offer some advice and guidance on that. But Digital Skills Award is definitely worth doing for all the hard work that you're putting into digital learning and teaching and cyber resilience and internet safety. And there is also, if you have got Digital Skills Award and you have not done the special recognition badge for cyber resilience and internet safety, that is worth doing as well. And again, getting that recognition for the hard work you do to engage learners and deliver them with those high quality lessons. So it'd be great to hear from schools who've got the Digital Skills Award, and particularly that CRIS badge as well. And if you're doing any of this learning, you're ahead here, and you're already delivering cyber resilience and internet safety, particularly around money and devices and online shopping, and you're bundling that into your maths learning. We'd love to hear about that. But any digital learning that you're doing with your children and young people, we'd love to hear about it, to share your story with our community on Did You Learn Scot. So if you go to Did You Learn Scot, you'll see the Your Experiences, Your Community button at the top of the page, and you can contribute your story. Pictures, videos, a couple of sentences, anything you'd like to share. It doesn't have to be lengthy, it's just to give that snapshot and hopefully to inspire someone else with your story. I hope that's proved useful. Thanks very much for watching, and again, do get in touch and let us know if this was useful and how it has helped you to deliver that effective and engaging learning in your classroom. Thanks very much.